Hi, I'm Greg Quinn, and this is View from the Farm. Today we're talking about a common, albeit devastating problem, which is girdling. Girdling is caused by animals, generally in the wintertime, which actually chew the bark off of trees. Now you'll find this is most common with fruit trees. What they do is they actually get under the snow banks and they tunnel around and they chew the bark off through the course of the whole winter. Underneath the bark is the cambium layer, which is the plumbing system for the plant, and that's where the damage is done. So this is the problem. This is girdling. You can see where the bark has been removed, and if you look very closely, you'll actually see little scratch marks in the wood itself, which is caused by the incisors of the rodents. Now, rodents do this for two reasons. Number one, they're rodents, which comes from the Latin rodent, which means to scratch with teeth. And what happens is their incisors never stop growing, so they're constantly gnawing and chewing. But there is a little bit of nutritional value in this, and during the wintertime, when the snow is up to here, they will get through the snow, they'll tunnel, and they'll start to eat off this bark and eat into the cambium layer of the wood. You can see there's a little damage up here, and that's caused by the snow being so deep they can actually walk up the snow, make little stairs, if you will, and chew on different levels of the tree. Now, to explain what the problem is, the cambium layer, which is the layer of wood immediately below the bark, contains the phloem and xylem. This is where the plumbing system for the plant is. This is where all the moisture and nutrients go up and the chlorophyll come back down. And when you damage this cambium layer, you ultimately damage and oftentimes kill the tree. And so we need to repair this area so that that plumbing system is reconnected, so to speak, and the tree can then start to breathe. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do bridge grafting. Now, the first thing we want to do is to clean up this wound. And we're going to start by cutting right above the uppermost graft, the girdling rather, and then removing that bark. Sometimes it comes off kind of easy, sometimes you have to work at it a little bit. We want to have a nice clean section so that we can then connect the bridge graft. Okay, once that's done, then what we're going to do is we're going to cut some scions. Now, scions are short little branches that can either be taken from water sprouts, which grow from the base of the tree, if they have them. This tree doesn't have them. Or it can be taken from terminal buds, the terminal bud branches of the tree itself. So what we're talking about here is actually cutting some branches which are going to be our scions. Scions, a great Scrabble word, comes from the Latin meaning kinship or offspring. We're going to use these little branches as pipes. They're going to transmit the nutrients and the water from the ground up to the tree around that damaged part, and then of course the chlorophyll from the top of the tree back down to the root system. Now, it's important to remember that you have to use dormant branches. That's branches that have not started to leaf out yet. We're kind of lucky right here because for some reason this particular apple, unlike a lot of the others in the row here, hasn't started to leaf out yet. And so we're going to take some branches and use those for all of the apple trees. It's also important to use the same variety, the same cultivar as all of the other branches if you have to take it from another tree. So these are the scions. And when you cut the scions, you want something about the size of a pencil. And it's very important to make sure that when you install the scion on the tree, that you install it right side up. So you can tell by the way these buds are kind of growing upright. This is the top of the scion, this is the bottom of the scion. The bottom part goes to the bottom of the tree, the top part goes to the top of the tree. It's very important. The next step is you want to take both ends of the scion and trim them down to their cambium layer. It's important for the two cambium layers, the cambium layer of the scion and the cambium layer of the tree, to come in contact, because that's what's going to fuse and graft and create the transmission of the moisture and ultimately the nutrients. So basically, pruning one side off a little bit flatter than the other, and that's the part that's going to slip below the bark and create the new plumbing system for the tree. And you want it kind of narrow because this is the part we're going to be slipping beneath the bark. So you want it to kind of a chisel end, if you will. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Cuts on both ends. That's going to slip between the bark and create the new plumbing system. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, for the first one, we're actually going to insert the first scion below the bark. Now, we want to make sure that the bark is loose, so you can run the point of your knife up there kind of gently. Usually on young trees, the bark separates quite easily. This is a fairly young tree, so you can see how far up I'm getting, and you're going to do the same thing on the corresponding down spot of the bark. And then where the scion goes in, you want to split it just a little bit, right down to the wood, down to the cambium layer. And the same thing from the bottom, another little split. All right, so we're going to insert the scion, arch it a little bit in the middle. Sometimes when they're not flexible, the way to maintain them so you get good control is I like to put a couple of brads in there. Use some of these small brads and just kind of tack it in, and that gives you really good control of the wood so that both cambium layers are in contact. And the same thing down here. And that holds it in place. Okay, so there's your first graft. Now when we're finished, we're going to be covering this with a water-based asphalt sealer, which is available in most garden centers, and that will seal up these little breaks. Now we're going to continue this process all around the tree. You want these about every 2 to 4 inches around the tree. This is a relatively young and small tree, so we'll probably use, looks like maybe 4 of them on the tree here. Okay, so there we have it. The scions are in place. The cambium layer from the top of the scion and the bottom of the scion is now in contact with the good cambium layer of the tree, bridging the damaged area from our little critters over the wintertime. And now the moisture from the roots will start to come up these little pipes, and the chlorophyll will start to come down the little pipes, and in time the tree will begin to heal. It'll grow a new cambium layer, it'll grow new bark, and hopefully we will save this little guy. Now the last thing we have to do is to protect these so that there's no further damage. We can do this with a little bit of screening. This is called hardware cloth. I used the really small mesh so that nobody can get their little teeth through it. And there we go. And with any amount of luck, we've been able to save this little guy. I'm Greg Quinn, and this is View from the Farm.